Hey Anne, this is Mrs. Skoglund. Just wanted to give you a little feedback on your summer assignment. So we're going to talk mostly about Chapter 5 since that was the question that you starred, but I'll kind of reference some other parts of your project throughout the video as well. All right, so starting off, the first thing that I look for in a body paragraph, which is what this structure is a topic sentence, and ideally we want that to tie back to the question and kind of answer what the question is asking so that you can preview what the rest of the paragraph is going to talk about. I think that your topic sentences are definitely on the right track, and like you, in this one, for example, do tell me about business decision that was benefited because of story. However, I think we need to be careful to look at all parts of the question because you don't necessarily explain this second part, like what story provided that facts couldn't. And I noticed that in some other L-directed questions as well. Like here, what metaphor makers do and how they excel in symphony. So you tell me like kind of what they do, but not how that connects to symphony. So I would just encourage you to really make sure you're looking at all parts of the question. Next, I actually look at the end of your paragraph for a concluding sentence, and that should also kind of tie back to the question and wrap everything up and sort of signal to the reader that the paragraph is ending. I noticed in that a lot of times you have a second piece of commentary here at the end of your paragraphs, which is good. Like we want a second piece of commentary after the quote, but I couldn't really distinguish a separate concluding sentence there in this paragraph or in some other paragraphs as well. Like this kind of just looks like commentary to me. So I would encourage you to make some revisions and to make a very distinct concluding sentence that sort of summarizes what the paragraph has been about and maybe starts like leaning into the significance of the chapter or the topic. And that way your reader just doesn't feel like it sort of cuts off, but it does have that little concluding sentence. All right, next I looked at evidence, and I definitely feel like this is your strong point as a writer right now. I really like all of the evidence that you've selected. So, for example, I like how you have this first quote talking about like what the study was, and then this one talks about the benefits of it. You're also doing a nice job of what's called like embedding or how you integrate your evidence. So, for example, if I read this one out loud, it's with the help of her studies, students at Columbia University Medical School now take a seminar in narrative medicine, blah, blah, blah. And that's really nice, Ian, because even with the quote, that reads just as a complete sentence. It blends together really well. So well done there. Definitely keep that up. After evidence, I look at your commentary, and I think you're on the right track with your commentary in that you're not just summarizing the quote, but I do kind of want a little bit more. So let me give you an example. Down here, when you're talking about how this, the study helped to give young physicians greater skills in empathy, you kind of talk about that here when you're like, this helps them to better understand their patients. So I think you're getting somewhere with that, but I want to know a little bit more specifically, why does empathy help doctors understand their patients, Like what kind of a benefit is that going to have? So just expand that commentary a little bit, like walk me through it a little bit more. Lastly, I look at conventions and in-text citations. So in-text citations, we do want to make sure those are at the end of the sentence, not necessarily at the end of the quote. And there's not going to be a comma, like I noticed a couple of those. It'll just be the end of the quote, citation, and a period at the end of the sentence. Conventions looked really good. I can tell you definitely proofread, and I don't notice any major like punctuation or capitalization things, so good job there. Lastly, I thought you did a good job on your R-directed activities, and I especially liked reading about your interview with your dad in Chapter 2. It definitely seems like he uses kind of both, sides of thinking, and so I thought that was really interesting. Anyway, just wanted to give you a little feedback.